Yo dog, I heard you liked storage. So I got you some storage for your storage that we can store where you want us to keep your storage. So anyhow, welcome back to the Storage Inception channel here, where we put storage and storage and storage and storage. This is actually kind of a viewer suggested video. Some time ago I made a video about cheap USB removable hard drives, where basically I just showed the concept of a USB dock, and then, you know, buying bare drives, you can just swap them out of the dock and save yourself some bucks if you need mass storage. Which, shockingly, this is not actually all the loose hard drives I own. This is only like, what, 20 of them? It's out of hand, I know. One of the comments in that video was, hey, how do you store these things when you don't want them in the dock? And at that time, my answer was, you know, just to put them back in the static bags they came in. And then some of them came with like bubble wrap little mailers, some of them came in boxes, whatever. And that's just what I've been doing. Until I discovered that I'm not actually very good about keeping up on that, so I ended up with loose hard drives laying around all the time. One of them took a ride to the floor, and I was like, okay, enough. There's got to be a better way to do this. And there is. These things. But I very quickly discovered that there are about 10 different versions of these boxes available on the market. So I bought 8 of them. Technically 7. I'll explain that a little bit later. What I'll say right off the hop is that with 2 exceptions, these are all roughly all the same price. And with 1 exception, I like them all just fine. So there's only one of these that I just flat out don't like, and there's only 2 that are really expensive, but you do get something for that additional money. First thing I'll talk about are what I'm going to call the 2 kinds. Really, it's just one kind that you don't see represented here. And I'm just going to refer to those as industrial storage cases. Essentially, it's just one of those like aluminum briefcases with slots in it that you can put like 20 hard drives in. I don't have any use for something like that, so I didn't want to buy one, so I didn't want to discuss them. If that's something you're interested in, then you can take your chances and buy one and check it out. Next thing, all of these except these 2 have basically the same properties. They're all padded, they're all ESD resistant, ESD proof, whatever. They all do basically the same job. These 2 are also water resistant, which, surprise, surprise, these are also the more expensive ones. So as we go along, we're looking at these. They all do basically the same job. Speaking of, let's talk about what job you really want them to do. There are a few reasons I have that monster pile of hard drives you just saw. One of them is that some of those drives are older legacy drives. So they're just hanging out waiting for a new home, another project, whatever. I'm not going to throw away perfectly good functioning IDE hard drives. Never know when you might want one. They don't take up that much space. So they're just in storage maybe forever. So one of these kind of boxes is absolutely perfect for that kind of thing. The rest of those drives you saw, I have the intention of building a couple of servers with in the coming weeks, months, whatever. As you might guess, buying this amount of storage and everything gets to be expensive. So I'm just piecemealing my way into those servers while still being able to make progress like archiving data and stuff like that. For my use case right now, I'm in and out of one of these boxes maybe once or twice a week to swap drives out in the dock. If you're thinking that you want to use your drives more frequently than that, this is probably not a good thing for you to do. With the exception of these, all of these cases have a living hinge, and they all just have like a plastic snap. So those features are going to wear out fairly soon. Like they're not the most robust design in the world, but I think for the target customer that would want something like that, that's going to be just fine. If you need to access your data more frequently than that, I suggest that you just get a regular USB enclosure and just put your drive in there permanently, and let your enclosure also be your protective clamshell. The durability exception comes with our most expensive ones. These are both the most robust cases that I've seen for almost anything. These are really nice. But I think each of these were like almost the price of 5 of each of the other ones. But you do get something out of that. First of all, I think philosophy of use for these would be someone who might make a monthly system backup, but has maybe a detached garage or a backyard garden shed, or maybe even a drawer at work or something like that, where you're going to be transporting these back and forth quite a bit, and they may be out in the elements. Like, in fact, I think these are pretty much perfect for that. The reason you might want to do those things is to have what's known professionally as off-site data storage. So God forbid someone breaks in your house or it burns down or something, you have a copy of your data that was not there that you can still go harvest and get back later. So these are much more robust cases than the other ones, and for that reason, I think if you were to want to set up something like that, this would definitely be the way to go. But they both have really affirmative hinging. There's actually a steel bar in here. You maybe just barely see the end of it on this smaller guy, and then it's a little bit more apparent in the hinge on the larger one. And it's the same deal with the latching hinges. You can just see the little steel pins there. So these are more or less forever pivots. You can see they both have gasketed doors. So that's a nice pliable, squishy O-ring that will compress down and seal up when you close them. This one is also designed to accommodate either two 2.5-inch drives like so, or it has this insert you can take out and you can put one 3.5-inch drive in here. Actually, there's an insert in the lid too you probably have to remove, but that's still a pretty nice squishy material. Yep, and nice and positively latched up, and maybe you can hear it, maybe you can't. That drive has just a little bit of slack in it, so maybe we do want one of these. Oh yeah, that's the way to roll. Nothing now. And it still has a nice positive compression feeling on the gasket. So this would be what I would consider to be your Cadillac or S-Class or whatever you want to say, Rolls-Royce series of hard drive enclosure. And then its little brother over here is the same deal, just for only 2.5-inch drives. And also very secure, no wiggle jiggle. And on this one, the O-ring's actually almost fully exterior to the case. So you can, still observe it's got a really nice compression. So both of these cases are far and away the nicest ones I ordered. I like them a lot. I think they are overkill for most people. But if you think you are in that unique use case, definitely worth your bucks to do that. Next up, we'll do the one that I don't like. And you will see I have 4 different cases, well, 3 different ones you'll see. All from Orico, I think is how you'd pronounce that. This is the only one I don't like. It's too bad because this is also the one I wanted to like the most, just because it reminds me of a Zippo lighter. Specifically my plus size Zippo lighter. But we don't always get what we want. The problem with these is they're just made wrong. They shrank when they made them. You see how it's got that sad face profile? You just absolutely have to ram jam drives into this thing to get them to fit. Like I gotta push pretty significantly there. And then getting it latched up is really no big deal, but it's really uncomfortable how much you gotta ram jam them in there. This also is the case with the smallest latch area. So that is the hinge portion of the latch. And you can see those are, I don't know, probably no more than 3 or 4 millimeters wide. So those will fail in enough time. The plus side of this is also one of the easier cases to open. But the downside also on the other side is that's also the smallest living hinge area. So I'm going to pry my drive back out of here now. But I would put that guy on the do not purchase list. Also, most of these cases are available in different colors. Like this one came in a 5-pack with 5 different colors. So if that's something you like, it's available to you. Let's do our last oddball. This one's from StarTech, and these were affordable. Neat looking case. I like the latching and the hinge. It's actually a double book hinge. So you can see there's a living hinge here and a living hinge over here, so that no one hinge is taking all the stress. I like that generally as a design feature. There's another case over here that has that as well. Very rudimentary padding. There's just like 3 little dots there. And then of course it only fits 2.5-inch drives. That happens to be a really slim drive because it's a SSD and it doesn't fit tightly. This particular case I don't think came with any extra rubber bumpers or anything to overcome that, so you are just stuck if you're in that boat. But for instance, here's a 9.5 millimeter hard drive, and she fits nice and tight. So if for some reason you got a whole bunch of 2.5-inch hard drives sitting around, the StarTech cases I think are pretty decent. But they are not nearly as good a value as these Orico cases. The one I showed in my little Pimp My Hard Drive intro comes with this hard drive bay, so you can actually slip 4 2.5-inch drives in there. Pretty comfortably, and close it right up and be on your way. They also sell a version of this that I was foolish enough to buy that is not sold with the trays, and there's only like a $2 price difference between them. So yeah, you definitely want the version with the 2.5-inch carrier in my opinion. This is a really cool design. I like these quite a bit. The only real downside with this approach is that if for some reason you want to spread your drives out, like if you did want to have like one in your drawer at work and one in a different place or at grandma's house or whatever, it's difficult to do because this is just a single box. But I like this approach a lot. Like all of its friends, this is just a single living hinge design. So right there. So if you open and close this thing a million times, eventually that hinge is going to break, and that's going to render the box useless. The latch is kind of the same deal, but it's so robust that they actually didn't have to thin it to be a hinge. So the latch will probably last way longer than the hinge, but yeah, I would say this is in the category of a light duty enclosure, just like most of these are. Next up is another Orico, and these are actually the ones that I like the most, despite the nice things I just said about that one. They're a little harder to open. You can see the latch on them is really small, so you got to kind of pry at it a little bit. But what I like about these is they have this fully lined interior, so it's not just a little tiny rubber bumper or anything. You know, like the previous model I showed you just has these 4 little standoffs on each side that your drive rests on. This is actually like a, I don't know what you would call it. It's actually almost just like a mouse pad material. It's almost the same in terms of padding and almost the same in terms of look. And since they're padded like that, they just have a really nice feel to them. They latch nice and positively. This is just a really firm latch. And when they're assembled, there's just no movement whatsoever. Just for the sake of my opinion, I just happen to like this the best of the ones I've seen for 3.5-inch drives. So these are the ones I've had the longest too, and I've been using the most, and they seem to be holding up just fine, but the day will come where I know that they will break along this living hinge just like all of the other ones that are made that way. One thing that has only now occurred to me is that if you intend to store these like on a shelf like this, their intended label area is pretty useless to you because you're not going to be able to read it. I suppose if you wanted to stack them that way, you could always label them along the spine. There's like a flat right there where you could do that, but doesn't do you much good the way they are. Whereas, like for instance, one of the competing types has its label right along the edge, and for that matter, it's a lot easier to put a flat on that guy too. So, more considerations to consider. And that brings us to the last one of our list. This is made by Initech, which kind of makes me laugh. It's spelled differently, but it sounds like the company from Office Space. This is a nice case. The latch on it, I don't like quite as well as some of the other ones because it actually is a living hinge right here. It's not just molded such that it's flexible enough to move. This one actually does like snap open and shut. So that's both good and bad in my opinion. But it does have a double living hinge spine, just like the StarTech I showed you a little bit ago. So I don't know if it's fair to say that actually doubles the life of the hinge, but it's certainly going to help. I'm not as wild about the padding in these because it's just like this really open cell squishy foam. I don't feel that it really does that great of a job. But at the end of the day, these are all pretty light duty storage solutions. So stick your drive in there. This one you have to kind of line up a little bit too. But once it's in there, it feels pretty secure. A good solution. There's enough debate in my mind between this guy and this guy that I could really see those two being the front runners for a lot of people. I think just simply as a matter of preference, I still like this one the best, although this may technically be a better design. I think this one's got better cushioning. Take that for whatever you think it's worth. Last thing I want to say is that all 4 of these are sold in a multi-pack of 5 at a time. The StarTechs come at 3 at a time, and then these higher-end gasketed ones are just sold individually. I'll have links for everything down in the video description. As always, I want to thank you guys for stopping in for this video, and I will catch you on the next one.